record this. So yeah, there's a bunch of different videos I've got right here. I've got Maya ready to go, and as you can see in here, I've got a bunch of stuff for us to talk about. One of those first things is a link to Sketchfab, and before we go too far, let me start this off like this. So Sketchfab, you're going to need to make an account for your birdhouse, which I didn't see any updates within the past couple days. So make sure you guys are posting updates so I don't get surprises. I don't like surprises for projects. I'm going to upload a thing in here for us to be able to look at. I'm going to go into, we'll just go inside of an old project to get this ready. Dump sword, what is that? I don't even know. All right, scenes. Okay, it's a 3D object. I have no idea what this is going to be. I'm going to open that and I'm going to upload. So you do need Sketchfab to be able to share your work, and I'm going to show you why Sketchfab is so good. It's not a hard thing to use. It is actually one of the most, I would say, groundbreaking technologies that's occurred within the past 10 years for us as digital artists. That and Arnold, what we'll be talking about in just a little bit with physical-based rendering. So both of these things are how we polish our artwork, or in my own personal experience, I think my artwork isn't so great. So polishing a turd, you can make anything look a lot better when you put it through some better lighting, and you actually you think about the emotion that you're trying to put behind it. So this helps. Again, if it's not so good in the first place, it's going to look better when it goes into Sketchfab. But it's all about the underlying structures, like your polygon placements, your use of repetition and symmetry. All the art has to exist for Sketchfab to make this really, really nice. This is processing right now. I'm actually going to open up another window of this to show you with an example of one. So if I go inside of my models here, I think I was uploading, there we go. I had a skull that I was uploading earlier, and this model right here is what uploaded. So right now, Sketchfab took a model of mine that's in 3D and threw that into an upload, and that's what this process is doing. Okay, this is already ready. So I'm going to edit the settings of this. I'm not even sure what this is. So let's open this up to look at it. Okay, there's a little stump thing with a sword coming out of it. This is from a demo I did a year ago with concept artist and illustrator Sean Usick, who teaches at MVCC as well. So this was something we were working on together, and this is like the low poly models that I was working on right now. This is not ready yet for Sketchfab because I haven't textured it or anything like that, but I'm going to show you guys how to make this look even better, because right now it's just one color, not all that fancy yet. So how do we make that look better? If I go into my 3D settings, and inside of 3D settings, I could change my view. So right now, I'm just going to left click and zoom. It's just like in Maya. I'm going to leave it around here and then hit save view. Now that I've saved my view, I am guaranteed that every time I load the Sketchfab model, it's always in the center on here. So it's a pretty nice way to make sure things are looking the way they need to be. Now that I have that, let's look at what this is actually saying for us. Right now it says PBR. I can go matcap, and matcap will change the way that my renderer is handling everything. I'm going to leave this on PBR for now. You have your field of view, which is 45 degrees. That's a pretty standard one for now. I'm not going to touch that either. I'll show you what that does. So you can flatten, or you can, push the depth on things with your camera angles. This has to do with physical cameras. Anyone who's ever used a physical camera, you may or may not have had that experience. I'm going to put that back to 45. All right, not going to touch this. Not going to touch wireframe. That is what I did for you guys for a number of exercises so you guys could see that. So here's an example of that. Background. Right now it says color, and it's kind of got that pink. You can change that around wherever you want. You can add a image or import a background image, which is nice, or you can go with a environment that is already provided. So if I uncheck this ambient environment, you'll notice there's a blur setting 3. If I go 2, 1, and then 0, I'm now in this shop, which I'm going to leave that alone and just explain to you what we're looking at here. It's actually found underneath my lighting right here. So in my lighting, you'll notice right here right away there is environment. If I turn that off or on, my environment is actually handling the lighting of my object. So it's using this HDR file. And an HDR file is this 3D file that it's basically a little camera. I have one somewhere around here in my mess of a... There it is. It's just sitting in a pile of garbage over here. So this is sort of like a camera that can do an HDR file. It's got 2 cameras on both sides, and it can photograph an actual environment and then make an HDR file, which is essentially top, bottom, left, right, back, front views of a scene. And right now, this looks out of place because this HDR file is in this industrial classroom or something. Kind of weird for a fantasy enchanted sword that is supposed to be hovering and wrapped around with some leaves and stuff like that. So that's not really what that should look like. Let's try Treasure Island. Okay, still not so good. Merwood. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Now, it's not going to be 100% on what we're looking at and what we want it to be, because these are pictures somebody else took. So obviously, I didn't envision when I made this model that there'd be a signpost back here and a bench. I envisioned me to be deep in the woods. A way to alleviate that is to change the orientation. So you can change the orientation of your model. And you'll notice as I do that, what's really cool about this is you're starting to get different shadows from the lighting that are in this scene. I'm going to leave that here. I kind of like what the lighting's doing on this, but I don't like the fact that I can see all of this other stuff. That brings me back to this little gear again. I'm going to click that blur. There we go. Now that I blurred it up to 2, nobody knows. And that's good. And people should be more focused on this than the fact that there's a bench right there. So they should be. Now that I have this, let's look at what else we can do. So I've got all this going on. I can also turn on ground shadows, which is a newer thing that they've added. Ground shadows allows for ground shadows, which, as you can see, for me, probably doesn't make much sense because it make it look like the object is floating. I'm going to turn that. I'm going to turn the intensity of the ground shadows off. Let's see if we can get some baked ambient occlusion. Nah, we're going to turn that one off too. I'm not going to use these. I'm going to show you something else. Actually, it's rendering. Let's see what this rendering does. Oh boy. What do you got? Okay, that was not so. That wasn't worth the wait. We'll turn that off. I got another way to do this. If I go into materials, this is my material that I'm currently looking at, and when we load things for texturing, which, oh, you guys make it to next semester in our digital applications for the animator, you're going to learn how to actually paint our models and then make them shiny and all that fun stuff. Right now, my base color is this white gray. I can go a little bit darker or whatever that is. I can change the metalness. I can make that so it's shiny or it is flat. I kind of like it on flat for now. And there's all sorts of other stuff inside of here, such as ambient occlusions and all that. This actually is maps that you would load in. So we'll be handling that next semester. So we don't really need to worry about this one right here. The cool part is, though, in your birdhouse, when you apply different materials to your birdhouse, you will have the option later on when you upload that into Sketchfab. You can click on each of the different colors or your materials, and you can change those after they're already in. So if you had something that was red, you just click on that color and change that to something else. So that they're linked, and I'm going to tell how you guys can import that in a little bit here. So inside of my post-processing, this is how you polish a turd, and it's pretty amazing. Screen space reflection, don't really have objects that would be reflective, except for maybe the sword, which isn't set up right now with that material, so I'm going to leave that alone. However, this one is a magical one. subsurface ambient occlusion. If we had an ear or a nose, we can actually make it so it's semi-transparent, and you can have those really cool light rays going through that. I don't have that right here. You can see the ambient occlusion is helping to boost some of these shadows though, so we can sort of take advantage of that as well by playing around with these. Now, I'm not sure how to properly tell you how each of these values work. It's sort of just being an artist and visually determining, does that look better or worse? It's sort of like if you were ever at an eye doctor's and they're putting on different glasses on your face and they're asking you constantly, is this better or worse? And so you keep moving things. My rule of thumb is move only one thing at a time and then change something else, because they're all linked and it could be a nightmare of tug of war with one thing versus another if you keep messing around with everything all at once. Grain. You got yourself some grittiness that can be added for some extra texture. Depth of field. This is fun. If I want to draw the person into my world and make sure that they're really focusing on a focal point, I can click on a part of the model and you'll see a little circle show up. And that's what's going to be in focus. Everything else gets blurred out. So man, is this a way to polish a turd. So I can kind of get rid of my background blur and then increase the background blur and reduce the foreground blur and put a little bit of depth on this model that really pushes this beyond what I originally had created in just like that default Maya file. The sharpness. This will increase or decrease the edge on how much that's showing up. Obviously, going too far, it makes it look like a garbage Photoshop filter. So we don't really use this too much. We use that sparingly. I don't even use it very often. Maybe I should. I don't know. Chromatic abbreviations. Oh boy. Welcome to college. So this is, I haven't found a proper reason for why you'd want to do this aside from give people headaches. I've seen it a little bit in some space scenes and things like that. This just makes me have bad flashbacks, so I don't want to use that. Vignette, I'm going to turn that on. And what do we got? Oh, we got some little shadows. Some people like vignette. I like it. Some people feel it's a bit cliche. That's up to you. Obviously, if you do something like this is sort of like the technique old school animations would do when they want you to see what a person's focusing on. You actually saw that if you ever watched Over the Garden Wall. At a couple points, the characters look at something and then little lines come out of their eyeballs and then you see what they're looking at. It kind of gives you that binoculars effect. Not exactly something I would push too far there. Okay, bloom. Bloom is awesome because bloom with highlights and shiny things, I don't have that on here right now to give you exact examples of that, but it's going to give you this little bit of soft focus on something, or not soft focus, but a little bit of a bloom. So anything that's super bright has that kind of blurriness to it. So really, really cool how that can push the realism of our scene or make it more magical. So you can see if I crank that up, how much that's going. Now, if this had proper textures on it, anything that was super highlight, it'd be having that bloom, and not everything would be receiving that. So just another extra little bit of sprinkles you can add. Tone mapping, that's another fun thing. You can go from linear, Reinhard, and filmic. I'm not really sure all the reasons for the names, but they give a different way that your tones are being utilized in here. So another piece that you can experiment with. Your exposure, you can modify that in post. Your brightness, contrast. So this is how you really push the stylization of your scene. Lots of different things. I'm going to turn that off for now though. Actually, as soon as you see that, the on versus off, the depth of this scene just seems way more on. Like, so I'm going to leave that. Color balance. Shadows, midtone, and highlights. So we can change how maybe it's supposed to be like in a more purpley scene or something like that. So you can change all that fun stuff. So lots of different stuff in here. amazing tool for artists. I'm gonna hit save settings and hit exit, and now Stump Sword, it should be looking, there it goes, a lot different. So now it's gonna look like this. So this is how we can upload models to Sketchfab by being in Sketchfab. But how to actually do that in Maya? Well, let's say that I have these things, and these things are the work of my life. These are the most important things I've ever made. Oh, beautiful. If I have all these things, first off, make sure they're labeled. And maybe you have an object inside of here that is red. And then, so if I made a blend that's red, I can add that to this guy. And then maybe this donut is a fancy one that everyone fights over in the car on the ride home when we open up the donut box for no reason to tease the kids. And they find out there's a fancy one in there and both children want it. There we go. This one's a dual tone. So notice all I did was select by face and then right click assign material to selection, and I added just some polygons that have that. So I've got something with different materials on it. If I select all these things and go to File, Export Selected. By default for me, since I'm a video game artist, my exports are often FBX. And FBX is a standard way of exporting, which is, I don't know what the abbreviation is for this, but it is something that Autodesk created. And it is something that handshakes really well with different software. You'll notice that there's different settings in here, like baking animation. So I can actually have animations exported. I can have materials exported. So when I export a scene in an FBX format, it's something that if you're in 3D Studio Max, or if you are in Sketchfab, in Maya, or ZBrush, all these things will open up properly. It's really, really nice how that works. Now, the issue is that if you're working with this, and maybe you're going to File, Export Selection, and Sketchfab's not showing up, or FBX isn't showing up, what do we need to do? Well, underneath are Windows, Settings, and Preferences. So Windows, Settings, and Preferences, Plugin Manager. All you got to do is FBX, and go and see the manager. Yeah, FBX Maya. Just click Loaded and Auto Load. That will get that to show up for you when you export. So, again, this Maya is a hallway of mirrors that you just start looking in, and it's just like, whoa, look at all that stuff. There's so many things that aren't preloaded into Maya by default because there's so many different things you might need to do. And by having all these different plugins load, your computer takes longer to boot up Maya. So it's sort of that thing, the same idea too. And hopefully your graphic design instructors or anyone that's teaching you digital applications 1, hopefully it's not just a pen tool, you're doing a bunch of things in there. But the idea is that if you're loading fonts, the more fonts you have loaded on your machine, the longer your machine takes to boot up when you turn it on. It's because it has to go through all this extra stuff. So same thing with Maya, it's going to take longer when we load up a lot of other plugins. So we have to be smart about what we're doing. Not that I would worry about it so much, because Maya isn't the worst for booting. But that is how we would take these, go to File, Export Selected, and then we'd give it a name, and then we would just literally go into Sketchfab. So for me, I've got a number of credits. You guys would only have 1 credit per month. So for your birdhouse, definitely upload that. What if you've already uploaded another scene because for whatever reason you were messing around with Sketchfab? You could rewrite that scene as your birdhouse, so you can edit it and re-upload, or make a different account. That way you can give me the birdhouse that I'm asking for, because that is something that I am asking for inside of our birdhouse, which is due next week. Oh, we are halfway there. Living on a prayer. That's Bon Jovi. I'm not a fan of Bon Jovi, but every time I say halfway there, it just pops up. So let's talk about some lighting. That's important. I stole my mug, by the way. It used to be my father's. Best professor ever. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about some fun stuff. Actually, before we talk about fun stuff, you need to do this. Watch this again if you have issues on understanding how to install software. You need to install Adobe Media Encoder for us, and it's a lightweight utility for us to be able to render, because we're going to talk about using that today. So let's get into why and what we're going to be doing here in this thing. Let's go into new scene, save. All right, I'm going to go and set my project into animation, drag and render. Oh, I've never had a project set for that, so it's not going to actually open it. We're going to go, we'll just open up a scene here. Just talk to myself so I can actually figure out where I'm supposed to go. Totally normal. Render test, okay. So we were looking at this thing a little bit last week, and that started to get into the idea of rendering. And right now I've got a number of lights in here. I'm gonna actually delete these lights out so we can look at this from scratch. And actually, you know what? I don't want to have everything in there. It's gonna take longer. We'll just import a file. We're gonna go into intro to animation and I put it. Scenes. Okay. All right. So I got myself a little guy. It was for a 3D print I made called The Well, and so this was the guy at the bottom of the well, or just his head. He's pretty lightweight compared to what the ZBrush model file was. So this is only 75,437 faces, which 10 years ago would be maybe a lot for Maya to handle. Maya doesn't care anymore. With this thing, I gotta light this thing up. So if I look at how lighting works inside of Renderer, I'm in viewport 2.0. I go to Arnold and I hit play, it's black. The reason why is because viewport 2.0 is able to give me basically a software version render of what my machine looks like. Somebody's saying something. Sorry, Curtis, I didn't mean to offend you. The Bon Jovi thing. I like him better that now that he's out of the 80s, I think. The Sketchfab save your uploads if you don't use them. It will. If it will have them saved as a draft if you don't press publish. So hopefully that answers the question. If not, type some more and I'll try and figure out. But yeah, it will save those. I've got stuff from there since the beginning, and they're still in there as drafts that I never uploaded. So they may be deleting things after 30 days. I think they're going to be changing that, but stuff is saved in there even if you aren't using it for a while. And again, there is like you could pay for it. You're a student. I would say if you need to have other stuff for other classes, for now, have it uploaded as another account, so I can get that if you're using Sketchfab already. So say I don't use one in a month. Will I have 2 uploads the next month? No. Oh no. It doesn't build up. They give you one, and then like once you hit submit, it's like countdown 30 days, and then you get another one, and then even if you don't build up, no, they unfortunately, you get one every 30 days, and then if you don't use it, it's gone. So yeah, it kind of sucks. So that's, hey, even more incentive to make lots of good stuff. So that way every month you can on the dot upload something new. So here's this thing, and I got to light it up. that's under Arnold. So you'll notice underneath Arnold, I have render, open Arnold render view, and I've got lights and shaders, all this stuff. We're going to handle lights today, and the number one light that Arnold likes to use is area light. And when I bring in area light, you'll notice my scene's doing nothing. The reason why my scene is doing nothing, it has to do with how lighting is being handled in my scene. Right now, use default lighting is on. If I tell it to use all lights, it will actually give me a sense of lighting, but it's actually not the correct representation of what this light can do. This is an Arnold area light, and it does a lot for us when we use Arnold render view. So if I compare and contrast these two views, let me turn this one on. You're going to see a lot more detail start to happen over here compared to this one. Now, these lights are physical-based rendering lights. So what that means is, if this is a intensity of 1 for my light, if I scale it down, it actually looks like it's getting brighter because this light is this size. So that intensity of 1 is being spread out across that whole object. It's kind of mind-blowing stuff there on how that works. But I'll show you guys how we can make this kind of look pretty interesting by moving around and changing this. As I move this, you're going to see that on this side, it fragments out each time because it has to compute this. And our graphics processors now are helpful for us to be able to do these things, whereas they didn't used to be a couple years ago. Your graphics processor actually had nothing to do with rendering. So now finally Arnold is using that technique. Inside of our view, while we're looking at things and trying to frame that inside of our Arnold render view, you'll notice that there is this little button that looks like a little circle that's blue. If we click on that, this is going to give us our idea of the framing of our shot. And our framing for the shot is actually a 960 by 540 resolution image. So that's in that letterbox or that widescreen look to this. So I know that if I'm looking at this and it's not exactly correct in the framing, it's because I'm kind of off a little bit over on one side with this model. If I bring it over here, now it's over on that side. I kind of like that idea for a composition. So I'm actually going to go into View, Bookmarks, Edit Bookmarks, New Bookmark. All right. So now I can just go back to that if I need to. This is one light. Let's look at what our light is doing. Attribute Editor. So if I look at this, my color is white, my intensity is 1, and my exposure is 0. The way to think about your intensity is that's how bright that light is going to be. The exposure is going to multiply that. So if I go negative on my exposure, it's actually going to reduce how bright that is. If I go more positive, it's going to increase that, multiply that on the positives here. My light shape is a quad. I can change that to a cylinder, which is kind of weird, but maybe you have a lamp. So that actually works well. Or a disc. So this gets us more like a flashlight or a maybe a typical light, depending on what we're considering to be typical. So I have this right here, and my shadow density is something I can always mess with. I can even change the color of the shadows this is producing, which will make it a little bit trippy. So as you can see now, I've got something that is completely otherworldly, because shadows shouldn't work like this. If you see shadows like this, you should consult someone. You might have a link to the World of Doom or something in your mind, which is kind of cool. But this isn't real. So we're going to go back into a more realistic representation of shadows here. And if you think about shadows, it's the absence of light, so we're actually subtracting that. But again, this is a fun thing you could do to change up some stuff and make things feel otherworldly. Right now, inside of here, I kind of like what's going on, but if you look at my temperature, so I was playing that a little bit earlier for those who saw that with the cinematographer of Joker. This temperature right now, it's set at 6,500 Kelvin. If I drop that down, the cooler temperatures or lower temperatures get more red. So the cooler a temperature is, the more red it goes, versus the warmer it is, it gets more blue. I know that is contradicting what you're taught for temperatures and the real world of looking at things, except for in light. So it's just worth knowing. It's the same idea when you look at a fire. The cooler parts of a fire are more orange. Those are the bigger ones, and the ones closest to the source of the fuel, those are usually blue. So that's kind of a way to think about that. Those are hotter areas of fire. So I'm messing around with this. I kind of like what's going on here. I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm going to actually add another light. So I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate. And now that I have that, Maya has to think a little bit. There we go. I'm going to scale this thing up a little bit, and I'm going to try to get this behind the horns. Right now, I'm not behind the horns, and I want to get that thing over here, and it's going to take forever to center that. So what I'm going to actually do is go into my panels, look through selected. So if I go panels, look through selected with a light selected, watch what happens. I'm actually in this fisheye weird view, but what I'm actually able to do, and you're seeing it right here, I'm actually in the view of that light. So I'm actually able to kind of frame up this light a little bit better because I'm inside of that light. So I'm going to go around maybe here. I'm going to go back to panels. Actually, yeah, let's go panels, perspective, and then I'm going to go into my bookmarks, camera view 1, and now I'm back to where I was. So I'm back to where I need to be. Now with this shape, I can scale that up a little bit more. And I'm going to think about the colors I want to use. Maybe I'm not going to use the color temperature here, but I'm just going to go with color. And let's go more, maybe that'll look nice. I'll hit done. And let's scale that up a little bit more. Increase the intensity on this so I can see that a little bit. Okay. That's starting to do something for me. I'm not a fan of that Pepto-Bismol. Maybe we need to drop that a little bit more. And maybe we should look of, so that's red. Maybe there should be green. There you go. That looks a little bit more Halloween-y. I'll hit done. Scale that up some more, and maybe I need to tuck it over towards that other horn. Or let's change this light from a disc to a quad again. So the benefit of that is I can kind of confuse why I can't rotate. There we go. So rotate. I'm actually going to squish this down and scale it out more. So I have this rectangle, and I'm able to get that other horn hopefully illuminated. That's my goal. We'll see if I get there. All right, I got that. Starting to get there. Okay. So now that I've got something like this, I'm still not seeing maybe anything from the bottom or the side over here, and maybe I want another one over there just to illuminate the side of this some more. So I'm starting to set up a 3-point light system on here. I'm going to try to get this a little bit better. So I'm going to go into this light and go into panels, and I'm going to look through selected. Now that I'm looking at that, that's a creepy way to look at this, but let's zoom out on that. Okay. Starting to be a little fun guy. All right, so I've got this going on. I need to go back to my perspective again, and I'm going to duplicate that light again. So Control D, and you'll notice each time I do this, it's starting to get a little bit slower because I've got these lights going on. I'm going to look through the selected again, so I know I have another light. I want to add some fill. So the fill is going to go on the other side of this model. So if I go, okay, there we go. Notice that horn is starting to show up on there now. If I were to drop down my intensity, you'll notice it's just not there. So by adding that fill, very subtle amount of that, it's starting to give that a little bit more definition. So it's popping out from the background a little bit better there. So that's starting to give me some fun stuff here. Now, this is set at 960 by 540, and my render time is at 7 seconds. Okay. What does that mean? that's meaning when we render this out and we had to make a movie, if we had to make a movie with this and we know that this is 960 by 540, every frame would be an estimate of 7 seconds for this shot, which is amazing if you think about how long movies usually will take us to render. So that's not bad. I only have one object in a scene and 3 lights, and there's no animation. It gets a lot longer, and it also depends on the materials we're adding. So right now, this material is this default Lambert. Actually, is this is it Lambert? Middle mouse button, drag that onto there. Okay, so it was. So that's my Lambert. Lambert actually is giving me a better look than what my Arnold object is doing. So I can start to adjust these things to change the color of this and all that. Now I have multiple monitors. Obviously, you don't need that yet. However, you will notice immediately when you have multiple monitors how that could work. Is there ways to make a glow from objects? Oh, yes, there is. Let's see here. Maybe I'm just going to increase the lighting. There we go. It's starting to pop a little bit better here. I'm also going to turn on some metalness, which metalness is going to give some gloss to this. So, all right, good question. Can we make some glows? Yes. I'm going to go into my Arnold, and if I go into Arnold standard surface, so if you look over here under Arnold, there's standard surface. Click on that. It'll make another one of these. I'm going to call this eyes. If I go to my presets, I can change that into an incandescent bulb, and I'll hit replace. Now, this is actually going to make a light out of an object, which is really cool. I don't like the color of it yet. So I need to change that. And you'll notice when I change the color in my color for base, it doesn't do anything. We actually have to go into transmission. Or not transmission. It's under one of these things. I haven't used this in a while here. Let's see. No, not you either. Oh, emission. Duh. Yeah, the thing that makes light. So I'm going to go into some red like that. Hit done, and I can change the weight of it so it's maybe not super bright. Okay, so now I got this. Let's go into my model here. So I'm gonna minimize this, and I'm gonna go perspective and zoom in. Okay, so I kind of want to grab these faces. So if I go to face mode and I hold down the tab button, I can, or I should be, there it goes. Should be able to select these faces, and it might work. I would use my Wacom tablet if I were to keep going on that. But this should, I'm not going to go super precise because it takes super long, so we'll say that that's okay. I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to take my light that I made, which is eyes, right click, assign material to selection. Now, let me minimize this, and I'm going to go back to my bookmark, right click, go to object mode, and where in the heck is my Arnold? It is right there. Okay, so now that's horrifying. I have to adjust the settings on this because this is just way too bright. But this actually will affect the lighting around the rest of the object. If you look at this right here, I'm going to drop the weight of that some more, and now it's starting to reduce that. So it's a lot of different settings in here to tweak, but it is a way to make light actually produce from an object. So another easy way to do that, if this is too intense, is create materials. I'm just going to use a blend, and I'm going to tell it to have an ambient color, or an incandescent color of, let's just give that a red as well. And we'll also change the object's base color here. I don't know why. For whatever reason, my menu got popped behind another menu. The beauty of Maya, how it will always find ways to wreck your sanity. Okay, there we go. So I got that done, and my specular, drop that. All right, I have this color, and I'm gonna minimize that again. I'm gonna just pop an eyeball in here, which an eyeball is for me a circle, or not a circle. It's 3D. It's a sphere. Right click, assign material to selection, and now if I jam this thing inside of his head, all right, we'll just plop them in. So that actually probably looks better than the thing I sculpted. Let's see what this did. I'm gonna go into my view, bookmarks, so it was right there, and let's open up that. Ooh, happy Halloween. So that's how you can add. I actually probably am a cheaper light, and by cheap I mean it's not an Arnold based lighter, it's just a blend that's been added to it, and I like it. What if I gotta render this thing out though? So in your exercise, you need to be able to set up different lighting, and let's talk about that right now. I haven't put it in here. I will definitely put it in there for you. Let me grab it from the other section so you guys can see that. Weekly content 7. Okay. Make sure I upload that. So in this, you're going to be doing a couple different things, and I'm not giving you direct answers on how to solve these. So it's not just like okay, here's how you make a hammer. Make sure you move all these vertices the same way as I did. I'm looking for creative input on how you guys are doing this. I'm not giving you the exact solutions. You're out of the baby carriage and you're starting to crawl around now. And I want you guys to figure out how to make decisions on your own. Now, again, babies bump their heads a lot. I'm not calling you guys babies. It's just this analogy. So you're gonna have some difficulties on trying to figure some stuff out. But you're gonna be able to solve this by just watching these things that I'm showing you right now. Using the layers that I'm providing for you, you're gonna make a hard light, a soft light, 3-point lighting, and here's a guide 3-point lighting. That's nice. Create an image of a Medusa using 3-point lighting. You don't have to make Medusa, she's there. And then make her look scary, and then make a turntable. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images, which we should talk about saving. And then we're gonna make a turntable, and I'm gonna talk about that as well. So those are the 6 things that I want you to be able to do. So 5 of those are images, and 1 of those is a movie. How do I save this? My grandma loves demon skulls. She doesn't. I'm joking. But maybe I need to send it to her at the old folks' home. It's Halloween. They love these things. How do I send that over to grandma? If I go to File, Save Image. Okay. And I can just type in the name of it and save it. That's so cool. Fun fact, make sure you know you're saving those things. I'm not kidding you. Every year there are students who will be like, I don't know where it went. I spent all night rendering. And I set everything up, and then I was so tired. It was 4 a.m. I clicked render, and I told it to render my movie. I don't know where I sent it. And I'll just be like, neither do I. I have no idea. You needed to tell it where you needed to save that. That's not something I could figure out for you. So make sure you know where these are going. For the sake of just being really sloppy, I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to put it in Demon for Grandma. I know, I already did this yesterday, but this one looks way better. So this one right here, Demon for Grandma. What does Demon for Grandma look like? Oh, beautiful. Man, that'd be a nice little Facebook thing for Grandma, so she can share it with her friends and say that her grandkid made that. So that's cool. You can just easily send a JPEG to Grandma of your image. Not exactly the most professional way to be able to work this, but this works. Right now, what we're looking at is the Maya Arnold render view. And this isn't really the official render. The render, I'm going to pause that, close it, is this button. And it looks like a clacker. And a clacker is, in the real world, you have this thing that clacks down to sync audio and video in movies. The clacker for us means you're rendering. And that is what just rendered. I'm going to go in File, Save Image. And this time, when I tell it to save this image, you'll notice that the changes here are over on the side with options. I can either do a raw image or color managed image. So I'm actually going to save this as a raw image, and I'm going to save that as Demon for Grandma 2. So we'll save that and compare and contrast these. So I don't know why there's JPEGs. We'll ignore that. Okay. So I've got these done, and so I got Demon for Grandma, and then I got Demon for Grandma 2. They're different. This is the other thing that people ask all the time. My computer made it look bad. And it's, yeah, it did. It did. And it's because you did something. What you did was you hit File, Save Image, and you needed to have that on. Color Managed Image. When you do that, if we look at Demon for Grandma 2 again, and I look at that over here, it's back. So the color managed image is going to be important when you save things. Now, this is how we just save an image, which is exactly what you need to do for the first 5 steps of our exercise. The other thing that you need to do. So if I go in this clacker with a little gear on it, that's my render settings. My render settings are right now set for an Arnold render, which is what I need. And if we look at the file output, it is going to give me whatever I set for the file output name. So it's going to use the name of the scene if I don't give it a name here. It's set as an EXR, which is great. This is a newer file system that is a lot of information jam-packed in one image. You can edit it. It's got alphas that are in there, all sorts of stuff. The compression is zip, great. Leave everything else alone in here, really. You're going to go into your color space. Make sure it's not on raw, because that's what's going to make everything look dark. So use output transform, fine. Your animation, or your frame animation, right now this is set as name dot extension. So that's going to only render out a single frame. If we want to make a movie, we have to change that. So to do that, name underscore number extension. That's going to be better. And you'll notice right away it's going to tell you what it's going to do based on this value here, the start frame and the end frame. This is how we can set these things up. We know that the renderable camera right now is perspective. We'll be talking more about animated cameras later on in the course. For right now, perspective is good because I don't have any other ones. And HD 540 for now is fine because I don't want to waste a lot of time on this render. And everything else we're going to leave alone. So if I hit close on this, I only have this object. I don't really have anything going on in my animation. However, if I were to take this object, I'm going to go over in the animation menu set, visualize, and create turntable. So if I press that little options box, let's tell it to be 60 frames for my turntable, hit apply, hit close, nothing happened. Oh, but if I spin, this is spinning around now from 1 till frame 60. And it's not spinning around evenly. It's actually starting slow, spinning, and then slowing itself back down to rest, which is kind of a nice thing to do. We can adjust that, and we'll talk about that later on in the next week. We're going to talk about how to change our keyframes and stuff. But this is how we set up our animation to spin. And if I look at my render settings now, if I look down here, I don't want that to be 10. That should be 60. And my renderable camera, I don't want it to be perspective. I'm going to delete that. I want it to be this turntable camera. So that's what was produced under this group right here. So I want that to be the renderable camera. To render this thing out, I would just need to go to my rendering, render, and render sequence. So my render sequence, I always go in my options just to make sure, because right there it wanted to go to perspective. I'll make sure it's under turntable camera. And I need to make sure, I just want to verify where this is going. Right now it's going in my Ghostbusters composite thing I'm working on. I should send that probably to my Intro to Animation course and set a folder for that. Now by default, if you had set up your project properly by going to File, project window and set that, it will go by default to your images folder, which is good. And I already have one of those in the oven to look at here. So if I look at my courses, intro to animation, and if I go under my lighting exercise, let's see. One of these is here. Images. Okay. So I've got these right here. This is 24 frames, which is 1 second here of animation. And they are all EXRs. If you double click on it, for me, these are just a bunch of zombies. Don't pay any attention to that. Here's one I had already done just really quickly. It is 1 frame. Photoshop can open that. And you'll notice the beauty of this is I do have a transparent background. I could work in composite and all that sorts of stuff with an EXR. I need to not open this in Photoshop, but in something else called Adobe Media Encoder. And if I open that up here, here it is. And okay, I had a dragon render from the last class. I'm gonna just remove that. Okay, it's gonna look like this. If I press this button, and okay, so it's going to the dragon render, intro animation and lighting and images. There we go. Here's the lighting daemon that I was messing around with in another file. We're just gonna use that. I have this one file selected. That's all that's selected. I go over here. I know that Open EXR sequence is checked on. Don't have all of these selected. Just have this one start of your sequence. So this one file is all you need. Have that selected. Make sure that's on and hit open. It's going to think about it. It's going to go H.264 is our friend. That's what we want. And if we go into that little options, we can actually scroll through that to see what that made. So there is what it's going to make. Let's tell it the name of this. We can tell that to be, we'll send it to desktop, the worst place to ever send anything. Class demo render, save. H.264, I don't have audio, I don't need that. And custom, just tell it to match source, so it'll try and make it a high quality. Use maximum render quality, sure. So those are all the settings that I need right now, and then hit OK. So now I have it going to the where it is. The output file is saying where it is. The custom preset I just said. If you clicked on any of these areas, it's going to open up the same menu, by the way. So don't worry. If you just click on any spots and open up that menu, and then I'm going to press this button, and it spit it out, and it's on my desktop. And so over here, double click. It's this really bad and really fast animation. Now, why is it so fast? Because you only rendered out 24 frames, and 24 frames is a second. So not a lot of content to look at. But if we had maybe made that so it was 3 seconds of a turnaround, that's usually, I think, 3 to 5 seconds is what I like to use. That gives a viewer a lot more time to look at something. So that's how you'll make a turnaround for our final setup, which is to light the Medusa head and make a turntable for that. So all those are, this is just like here's a little bit of information on rendering as we get deeper into the content that we're going to be exploring. Rendering is the sprinkles on top of your animation and your modeling. It is not something that should be started out and then you add those things. You add those after you know what the heck you're doing. Lots of different reasons for that. Main reason, these things cause your computer to take more time thinking about these things. So I also like to make sure my lighting is in a separate layer. And seniors are going to be talking about render layers and how we can adjust certain things so we can have that eyeball be rendered out separately from everything else, and a bunch of cool stuff. But for us right now, the only thing we need to worry about is rendering in very basic ways. So I think you're gonna have fun with this one. It's relaxing, I think, lighting compared to modeling out a monster truck. Which, by the way, some people submitted those. Make sure you're getting those in within the next couple days, because that does close up eventually. But we're not doing anything super intense. And the reason why I did that is to give you guys kind of a break on the major exercise. And then right now, trying to get that so when you are working on finishing up your birdhouse, this will probably take you maybe an hour to do the whole thing for the lighting exercise. You can finish up that birdhouse this week. And one last thing to say, for when you're posting stuff to discussion thread for me to be able to look at, it's a good idea to think about it this way. I'm working and I check the discussion threads like nightly, essentially Monday through Thursday. Weekends, if you're posting that and you're hoping on getting my attention, weekends are my weekends. So I'm not on there all the time. So I've got kids and a family and, other stuff to do. So if you want assistance on something, the best thing to do is to post it on a discussion thread and then send me an email. Hey, if you got time, can you please check out the thing I just posted on discussion thread? Or send me your files directly in an email so I can give you some critique. So, I know that we're working digitally right now and we're on a computer, but it is a falsehood to think that I somehow am stuck to this seat and I only exist here. I do a lot of other things. Actually, I really don't, but I'd like to think I do. So I have other stuff to do, and so I do get up and get away from here, and I'm not like looking at my phone just waiting for an email to come in right away. I have a lot of other fires to put out to deal with and all that other stuff. So again, emails, a number of you have been doing that. It's been great. And if I can't get back to you right away, it's because I'm juggling a bunch of other chainsaws. So show me what you got for your birdhouse, so that way I can give you some additional critique. Better time to do that would be by the end of today. And then, this weekend I'll try to get those as soon as I can to you, but I can't guarantee I'm going to look at that right away. It's going to be Monday night. It'll be probably the next time I'll be, getting through all that stuff. So by either tonight or Sunday or Monday, I'll probably be looking again. So, all right. Does anyone have any questions at all? Okay. Although, Bo, you had some great questions, so thank you. And Abby, thank you for telling me that I didn't have my sound on. The sound was on, but for whatever reason, my computer reset everything like it always does. All right, guys, have a great day and enjoy the fall weather while it's fall and we're not in, Winterfell again. So, all right, later.